November 12, 1942. Iron Bottom Sound, off Guadalcanal. Just after midnight, the sea is black and flat, broken only by the pale wakes of warships moving without lights. Above them, low clouds swallow the moon. Visibility is barely a few thousand meters, perfect conditions, Japanese officers believe, for the kind of battle they have trained for their entire careers. On the bridges of Japanese cruisers and destroyers, men peer through binoculars and optical rangefinders, eyes straining for shapes in the darkness. They trust their night vision. They trust their instincts. For decades, the Imperial Japanese Navy has built its doctrine around moments like this: close-range night combat, sudden torpedo attacks, confusion, and annihilation. This is where they are supposed to be unbeatable. What they do not see, what they cannot see, are the invisible beams already sweeping across the water from American ships. On board U.S. Navy cruisers approaching from the opposite direction, the atmosphere is different. The bridges are dimly lit, not by moonlight, but by the green glow of radar scopes. Officers are not searching the horizon with binoculars. They are staring at screens. Contacts appear as small blips, faint at first, then sharper, more numerous. Bearings, ranges, speed, course, all calculated automatically, continuously, without a single human eye spotting an enemy ship. Orders are issued calmly. Gunnery solutions are already being generated. The enemy has been found. This moment captures the core imbalance that will define the naval war in the Pacific. The Imperial Japanese Navy enters World War II with confidence bordering on certainty. Its officers are veterans of China, of earlier conflicts, of years of exhaustive training. Japanese sailors are drilled relentlessly in night maneuvers, torpedo attacks, and coordinated formations. Their famous Type 93 Long Lance torpedo is the most advanced in the world, long-ranged, powerful, deadly. And yet, beneath that confidence lies a quiet vulnerability. Japan's Navy has bet its future on human skill. The United States Navy has bet its future on machines. In the interwar years, Japanese naval planners believe war will be decided by decisive fleet engagements, fought by elite crews using superior tactics. Technology matters, but it is seen as an aid to the warrior, not a replacement for perception and judgment. Radar, in Japanese thinking, is interesting but unreliable, crude, and proven. Optical systems, rangefinders, binoculars, trained eyes are trusted far more. Japanese ships do experiment with radar, but development is slow, fragmented, and underfunded. There is no unified push, no centralized system, no urgency. By contrast, in the United States, radar is treated as transformative from the moment it proves workable. American naval officers in the late 1930s are not night-fighting virtuosos. Many know they are outmatched in traditional surface combat doctrine. But the U.S. Navy has something Japan does not: an enormous scientific industrial base and a willingness to reorganize doctrine around new tools. Radar is not just added to ships, it reshapes how ships fight. By 1942, American warships are increasingly equipped with surface search radar, fire control radar, and centralized plotting rooms that fuse information from multiple sensors. Gunnery is no longer dependent on visual spotting. Fire can be directed accurately in darkness, rain, or smoke. Most importantly, this technology is standardized. Every new radar set feeds into the same command structure. Every ship speaks the same electronic language. Japan never achieves this integration. At Guadalcanal, these differences collide violently. Japanese commanders expect American ships to be clumsy in the dark. Instead, they find themselves under precise gunfire before they even realize they have been detected. Shells crash into superstructures. Bridges erupt in flame. Fire control rooms are destroyed before Japanese gunners can acquire targets. Survivors later describe the same sensation again and again. Sudden impacts, no visible enemy, no warning. They are being killed by something they cannot see. This is not because Japanese sailors are less brave, less skilled, or less determined. It is because they are fighting a war that has already changed. The Imperial Japanese Navy has perfected the art of fighting the last naval war, one based on eyesight, courage, and tactical finesse. The United States Navy is fighting the next one, based on electronics, automation, and information dominance. By late 1942, the gap is no longer theoretical. It is measured in burning ships. And in the dark waters off Guadalcanal, Japanese officers begin to realize something deeply unsettling. They are not losing because they are outnumbered. They are losing because they are already behind. 1942 to 1943. From the Solomons to the laboratories of two empires. In Tokyo, reports from Guadalcanal arrive in fragments. Damaged logs, survivor testimonies, confused after-action summaries. The language is cautious, often evasive. Japanese commanders describe unexpected accuracy and mysterious enemy fire, struggling to explain how American ships could engage so effectively without visual contact. Privately, some officers admit the truth. The Americans are seeing first, and seeing means killing. For the Imperial Japanese Navy, this is not merely a technical problem. It is a doctrinal crisis. Japanese naval culture places enormous faith in the trained human senses. Gunnery officers are selected for eyesight. Lookouts are drilled to recognize silhouettes by mast shape alone. Night fighting is taught as an art, one that rewards intuition, aggression, and individual excellence. Radar challenges all of that. It replaces the eye with a screen, the instinct with a signal, the warrior with a system. And systems require something Japan struggles to provide at scale: coordination. In the United States, radar development is not left to individual ships or commanders. It is centralized, funded aggressively, and tied directly to doctrine. Universities, private companies, and the Navy work as a single organism. Dozens of radar models are tested, refined, discarded, and replaced in rapid succession. Failures are expected. Iteration is encouraged. By mid-war, the U.S. Navy has developed more than 100 distinct radar systems: air search, surface search, fire control, navigation, each designed to integrate with the others. Crucially, these systems are deployed fleet-wide. A destroyer built in 1943 enters service already networked into an electronic ecosystem far more complex than anything Japan possesses. Japan, by contrast, pursues radar cautiously and unevenly. Different branches develop their own sets. Naval radar competes with Army radar. Production is limited. Components are scarce. Training is inconsistent. Even when radar is installed, it is often used only as a backup, trusted less than the human eye. Worse still, Japanese radar doctrine remains defensive. Radar is treated as a warning tool, not a fire control instrument. Few Japanese ships link radar data directly to gunnery systems. Even fewer commanders trust it enough to fire based solely on electronic information. As a result, radar never becomes the heart of Japanese naval combat. It remains peripheral. The consequences compound rapidly. American ships begin engaging at longer ranges, earlier, and with greater coordination. Radar allows U.S. commanders to track entire enemy formations, predict movements, and concentrate firepower with devastating efficiency. Task forces operate as integrated units, sharing information in real time. Japanese ships, still fighting as individual platforms, are increasingly isolated. By the time visual contact is made, the engagement has already been decided. This gap is not limited to surface combat. Carrier warfare evolves the same way. American radar operators detect incoming air raids dozens of miles out, vectoring fighters with precision. Japanese carrier crews, lacking equivalent systems, often rely on last-minute visual sightings. Interceptions come late. Defensive formations break down. Pilots die without ever seeing who killed them. By 1943, the balance has shifted decisively. Japan still possesses brave crews, skilled pilots, and formidable weapons. But it is fighting an opponent that no longer needs to be seen to be lethal. An opponent that fights through information rather than intuition. Post-war Japanese analyses will describe this period with growing clarity. The problem was not a single failed battle or even a series of defeats. It was the realization that American innovation moved faster than Japanese adaptation, and that the gap was widening. The war at sea is no longer decided by who sails better, shoots straighter, or dares more. It is the Central and Southern Pacific. A war of attrition in darkness and rain. Japanese ships still sail aggressively. Crews still train hard. Orders are still issued with confidence. But something fundamental has changed in how battles unfold. American task forces now detect Japanese movements hours before contact. Radar operators track formations beyond the horizon, feeding data into centralized combat information centers. Courses are adjusted. Ambushes are prepared. Fire plans are calculated in advance. Japanese commanders, meanwhile, often enter battles with incomplete information, or none at all. They know the enemy is nearby. They do not know where. Survivor accounts from Japanese cruisers and destroyers reveal a recurring nightmare. Ships come under sudden, accurate fire from unseen opponents. Shells strike bridges and fire control positions first, precisely the areas American radar-directed gunnery prioritizes. Lookouts search frantically for muzzle flashes that never appear. Rangefinders sweep empty darkness. By the time a Japanese ship identifies the source of incoming fire, it is already crippled. This is most evident in night surface actions after Guadalcanal. Where Japanese doctrine once dominated close-range engagements, torpedo attacks, coordinated destroyer assaults, American radar has rewritten the rules. U.S. ships open fire at ranges Japanese commanders consider impossible at night. Torpedoes are launched too late. Formations break apart under unexpected salvos. Coordination collapses. Japanese officers describe a growing sense of helplessness. They are executing textbook maneuvers, yet the enemy seems always one step ahead. Attacks fail not because of poor planning, but because the Americans already know what is coming. In post-war interviews, several Japanese commanders admit the same realization. They were being outthought before the first shot was fired. Attempts to adapt come too slowly. Japan accelerates radar production, but shortages of materials and skilled technicians limit output. Training lags behind deployment. Crews unfamiliar with the equipment mistrust it. Commanders hesitate to rely on electronic data when lives and ships are at stake. Even when radar works, it is often isolated, unlinked to guns, unshared across formations. The Americans, by contrast, treat radar as the backbone of command. Fire control marks the most decisive difference. U.S. ships increasingly use radar-directed fire control computers that automatically calculate lead, range, and target speed. Guns adjust continuously as targets maneuver. Hits are rapid, consistent, and devastating. Japanese gunnery remains superb by traditional standards, but it is still human-centered. Optical tracking cannot match machine precision in darkness or bad weather. By the time Japanese shells land, American ships have already adjusted. The psychological toll is severe. Sailors speak of a sense of exposure even below decks. Depth, darkness, weather, none of it provides safety anymore. The enemy seems omnipresent, omniscient. Every night engagement carries the fear of sudden annihilation. Confidence erodes, not in courage but in certainty. By late 1943, the Imperial Japanese Navy is no longer losing battles solely because of numbers. It is losing because it cannot see the battlefield the way its enemy does. The sea has become transparent to the Americans, and for Japan that means there is nowhere left to hide. 1944. The Philippine Sea, the Marianas, the open Pacific. By now, the technological imbalance is no longer subtle. It is systemic and irreversible. American radar coverage stretches hundreds of miles from carrier task forces. Incoming Japanese aircraft are detected early, tracked continuously, and intercepted long before they reach striking distance. Fighter direction officers sit in enclosed rooms below deck, calm voices guiding pilots onto targets they cannot yet see. Japanese pilots later describe the same experience again and again. Being attacked without warning, from above or out of the sun, by fighters that always seem to know where they are. This is not chance. It is a network. Carrier battles make the disparity impossible to ignore. At the Battle of the Philippine Sea in June 1944, Japanese aircrews fly into what they believe will be a decisive engagement. Instead, they encounter layered American defenses built around radar. Fighters are vectored precisely. Anti-aircraft fire is radar-directed. Coordination is seamless. Japanese formations are shredded before they can strike. The result becomes known as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. For the Imperial Japanese Navy, it is not just a defeat, it is a revelation. The enemy is no longer reacting. The enemy is controlling the battle. Post-war Japanese naval studies are blunt. They note that by 1944, American forces possess not only superior numbers, but superior systems. Radar is no longer a single device. It is integrated with command, logistics, training, and production. When a new radar set proves effective, it is standardized. When tactics evolve, they are disseminated fleet-wide. Japan cannot match this pace. Japanese radar technology does improve. New sets are installed. Detection ranges increase. But they arrive piecemeal, often too late, and without the supporting doctrine to exploit them fully. More critically, Japan lacks the industrial depth to replace losses and upgrade the fleet simultaneously. American shipyards deliver vessels already equipped with the latest electronics. Japanese yards struggle simply to repair damage. The gap widens with every month. This technological lag reshapes Japanese decision-making. Commanders become cautious. Night attacks are abandoned or limited. Fleets operate defensively, seeking opportunities that never materialize. Initiative slips away, not because of fear, but because uncertainty replaces confidence. Without reliable information, aggression becomes recklessness. By late 1944, Japan's navy is no longer a peer competitor. It is a force reacting to events it does not fully understand. Its ships sail into battles already mapped, tracked, and anticipated by the enemy. The war at sea has become asymmetrical, and Japan is on the wrong side of it. 1944 to 1945, the final phase of the Pacific War. In the last carrier battles of the war, the outcome is decided before Japanese pilots even take off. American radar stations detect launches almost immediately. Strike packages are tracked from formation to destruction. There is no mystery left, no fog of war to exploit. Every movement generates a signal. Every signal becomes a target. Japanese officers begin to understand the full meaning of what they are facing. They are not being defeated by individual ships. They are being defeated by a system. Post-war Japanese testimony is strikingly consistent on this point. Again and again, former admirals and staff officers describe radar as the decisive factor that rendered their navy obsolete. Courage and skill, they admit, could no longer compensate for blindness. One senior officer writes that by 1944, Japanese fleets felt as though they were operating inside the enemy's mind. Every approach was anticipated, every retreat tracked, every concentration detected. The United States Navy, meanwhile, continues to accelerate. Radar systems are refined. Fire control computers improve accuracy. Command networks become more centralized and resilient. Even damage control is informed by electronic monitoring. Ships fight not as individual units, but as nodes in a constantly updating web of information. This is why American losses decline even as operations intensify, and why Japanese losses accelerate beyond recovery. By the time of Leyte Gulf, the Imperial Japanese Navy is no longer capable of coordinated fleet action. Radar-directed American forces detect and engage at will. Japanese ships fight bravely, often sacrificially, but without the ability to shape the battle. Doctrine built on night mastery has become irrelevant. The night belongs to radar now. In hindsight, the 2-year technological gap that existed in 1942 becomes a chasm by 1944. It is not merely that Japan failed to innovate. It is that the United States built an industrial and scientific engine capable of turning innovation into standard practice faster than any opponent in history. Radar was researched, produced, deployed, trained, and integrated on a scale Japan could never match. The result was inevitable. The Pacific War at sea was not decided by who had the better sailors, or even the better ships. It was decided by who could see first, think faster, and connect everything. By radar screens glowing in darkened command rooms. By fire control computers calculating solutions no human could match. by an industrial system that turned invention into dominance. It lost because the war itself had changed, and it did not change fast enough to survive.